Hi everyone, welcome back to Chaz Coy. Another kind of bit of a how-to, me trying to work stuff out sort of video. So this video is all about, just flip you around, fitting a 1 kilowatt Cloverleaf heater to the grow on tank. But also, so I cover, wiring it in, fitting the solvent weld hose locks, hose tails. I also got one of these Tapo energy monitoring smart plugs, so I'm going to cover as well how much energy it used to heat this up. Also talk through some of the temperature decisions that I made, and fishes are in there, seem to be happy enough. Can't really see them because the bubbles. There they are. So very much hope you enjoy the video. Settle down, have a cup of tea and enjoy. So if you've been watching my videos lately, you'll know there's a bit of a theme going on, and it's kind of like my hat, my big coat, and it's just 'cause it's so cold. We're like mid-March, and the temperature's just not picked up. I mean, I've got my thermometer out here and it's like, I've just opened it, so it's like 6.5 degrees and going down. I'm picking up my fish in 3 days. They're currently in 12-degree ambient temperature water inside their nice toasty greenhouse. But I mean, I've had my water in this tank now for coming on for 2 weeks, getting it start to try and mature. But I mean, look at the temperature. We're talking, I can't see that, is it 5.4 degrees, and that is about a degree warmer than it was yesterday. So I've had to do something I really didn't want to do, and that's heat the tank. What I've decided is I'm going to have to do, unless I want to wait another month, 6 weeks before the temperature is due to increase to the point I can get some fish, I'm just going to have to heat it for a little while. So I've bought one of the Cloverleaf 1 kilowatt heaters. I'm going to get this installed. I'm not going to go silly. I'm literally just going to bring it up to the temperature that the fish are in at the moment, 12 degrees, and keep it there until the ambient temperature just takes it onwards, and then into sort of the spring and summer temperatures. So in this video, I'm going to go about fitting it in my little filter box, house thing, whatever. It's the first time I've used solvent weld, so I'm going to do a bit of those. I've done a separate video on me unboxing the thing, so I don't have to chew through all of that in this video, which is just about getting it installed, getting the fish tank a little bit warmer than it is. So stick around. Right, there's the pump heater, sorry, it needs to go in here somewhere. Now I'm going to try and fit it here, but what's just annoying is if I'd have known I was fitting all this at the time, I would have made this higher so I could put the air pump underneath it, shift that over and have a lot more space for it, but can't do that now. So I'm going to have to just try and find a way to fit this in here somewhere. Doesn't need to go in any particular direction, but what I need to make sure I can do is obviously get the old pipes in the right way. So I've got some little angles and some different hose tails, so I'm gonna have a little fiddle with this, work out the best way to fit it, and then I'll come back and show you what I've decided, and then we'll get sticking it on and mounting it together. This is what I've decided. So the direction of flow is in this way and out that way. So I'm going to leave the pump going into the pressure filter, and then I'm going to go out the pressure filter, around this way into this hose tail, and then I'm going to come out of this one and to the pond. I might even drill a hole through there just to make that a bit neater, because one thing I need to make sure I maintain is my ability to turn this round unobstructed when I clean it. So I'm just going to have a quick measure up, make sure that's all right. That also means that I have the thermostat at the front, just makes it a bit easier to see. And also what I'm going to have to do is move my power box thing a bit closer over here, because this cable is so short it ain't going to reach for me to plug that in. So first thing I'm going to do is get now I know I need both of these hose tail on right angles. I'm going to get them solvent welded in, because that sets quite quickly but takes 4 hours to gain maximum curing time. So yeah, get them soldered in, then I can mount that, then I can start cutting the hoses and get this wired in. Right, before I get going, got my bits I need to stick together. I've got some, what's it called, sandpaper I call it, I don't know if that's called now. I'm going to use 80 grit, which I think's what I'd call kind of standard grade. This stuff's quite good. It's got like a fabric background to it. So what I'm going to do is, you can rip it really easily. Look, just get a bit and tear it. And then I know that's the right thickness then for me. But anyway, a bit of a distraction. I'm going to be using wet or dry weld on 725, which is what my local koi dealer suggested that I use. It's not cheap. I'll just hold this up for you so you guys can kind of see what's on the bottle. And again, this is the first time I'm using this stuff, people, so bear with me while I just hover on these instructions, because, you know, not necessarily something that's readily available on the internet. So hopefully, again, you can read that and that might be useful to you. But yeah, my process is essentially going to be rough up the edges on these. If they've got any like burrs sticking out, which I don't think they have, this one's got a little bit of a join on it, that's not too bad. Just make it all sure it's all nice and roughed up so we get a good chemical action of the solvent. One thing to note is this is the adjuster bit that my right angles are going to turn in. Now they're not as tight fitting as the rest of it. Now my dealer assures me that's absolutely fine as long as you get a decent glue on there. He said put it on, turn it a quarter turn and then leave it just so it really grabs. But these adapters do have a little lip round here which will flush join with the end there, so as long as we get a good seal that will be fine. So without further ado, get sanding. Just a couple of thoughts that occurred to me while I was just sanding that down. Obviously I did use a knife, just clear away a couple of these burrs right from inside the corner here. But also it's worth explaining, I think, that solvent weld pipe and the solvent cement that you use doesn't really work like a glue in the traditional sense. So basically when you paint this on to this surface here and on the inside of here, and then push them together, essentially what's happening is the solvent is melting the plastic there and there, so that when you push them together and it sets, what it's basically doing is it's fusing the plastic together. It's not acting like a glue does, where it sticks two surfaces together. So that's just worth bearing in mind, and that's why it says, like on the instructions, don't overload this with glue, because if there's, it's not the glue that makes, it's not the solvent cement that makes it stick, it's the effect it has on both surfaces of the plastic. So if there's too much glue in there, it can get in the way of the of the melted plastics actually joining together, and that's not obviously what you want. And obviously that's why it's important to move quickly, because if it fuses it together, you know, it's very difficult. If you break it apart, then all of these surfaces have degraded where it's stuck, and then you've pulled it apart, it makes them rough again. Yeah, so I thought that's probably just worth an explanation. If anyone of you have ever made like an Airfix kit or a model plane kit or a car kit or anything, and you're familiar with the plastic cement, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. One thing I nearly forgot to do actually was to trim off one of these hose tails. So I'm going on this pipe here, so I'm just going to trim this one off. I'm going to use my hacksaw. Now, one of my favourite YouTubers, Dave from Eden Koi, spoke about this actually. And if you look, if you cut it off in line with the what you consider to be the cut mark, it doesn't fully open up the hole. You see in there? So I'm just going to, rather than trim that off, because I don't want to trim off too much of that barb, I'm going to try and hollow that out. Let me just see if I can do that with my Stanley knife. Not the best design in the world, is it? Right, let me try something else. Rasp, this is a woodworking one. It's doing the job of making a bit of a meal of it. I'm going to just make the mould a bit better. Right, I'm going to finish it with this, and then I've actually got a metalwork file, which I'll just smooth that out with, so you don't need to watch me do all of that. So there you can quite see clearly the difference of look how much more flow. So if you haven't cut that off or filed that away, you definitely need to. Okay, so I've just done a couple of these. So I've attached this one. There you go. You can see, like I was explaining, it's melting the plastic, and that's what fuses together. So I've done that hose cell onto that angle, and I've also put this spacer one in here. Not quite as neat. Now, one thing that's worth bearing in mind, you got to dry fit everything first just to make sure it all goes together in the right way. When I was pushing this in, I could only get it in about that far in the dry fit. I thought it got too tight, but again, because it actually melts each of these surfaces, this just pushed pretty much all the way in. Now I stopped there, but part of me thinking I probably should have gone all the way to the bottom with that. So I think I'm going to do that on the next one. But I just thought I'd stop there just to give you that, and also think about the order you're putting these on, because when I pushed this one in, it all blobbed down the side, and I intentionally didn't have that on there in case that happened, because then that would melt the plastic and stop that from being able to turn. So what I now need to make sure I do is put that on there before I stick this bit in, otherwise I won't be able to put it on afterwards. So make sure you stop and think about the order and the sequence you're doing this stuff in, because once that's in there, you ain't getting that back out again, no way. So you're probably gonna have to, I don't know if you can buy spares, but you probably end up having to buy a new pump. So I'm just going to show you me gluing a couple of these together. Now again, I've done these two joints, so now this is going to be the third one I've done. So I'm going to start again with this pipe here, and apologies I'm a bit cack-handed, but I've got the camera to the side so I can focus on what I'm doing, because I won't lie, this is stressing me out a little bit. Now this is kind of like a little, if you can see that there, it's like a little bit of cotton wool type, spongy type thing, hairy thing, but again you can see it's got the plastic on where it starts to melt. So I'm going to make sure I cover all of this contact surface here, including this edge here and the edge here, because that'll all bind on the inside lips inside there, or so he says. Might be talking rubbish, who knows. So again, it says not to let it puddle or pool, but you need to have a nice thick coating on this bit. But again, you can feel it almost, they say this stuff works quickly, you can feel it melting the plastic. So if I go back over the bit that's already done, it's not glue anymore or solvent, it's melted plastic. And again, this says just a thin layer here. Probably put a bit too much, but again, just want to make sure I'm getting all those surfaces covered so that it will stick. There we go, and that's grabbed. Can't really see much inside there, but there we go. So there's that. Oh, it says, yeah, look, that popped back out then. It does say to hold it firm for 30 seconds to stop that happening. So I took a bit too much confidence, whoa, from that. Right, here we go. It's going to hold it like that. See? Fails, live fails in action. We want to do a little montage of how not to solvent weld. But yeah, I won't let you sit there and watch this dry. I'll come back to you when I do the next bits. Right, next one. Got a bit of wood this time. I'm going to push that the whole way into the bottom, and that will create a nice flush little stepped ring. But again, I've got to make sure I get this in the right way, which is that way. Will it fit in the upside down? No, it won't. So here we go. One done. This is one that's supposed to be slightly thicker, but again, try not to let that pour. And again, I can see this setting in front of my eyes, or going off, whatever you want to call it. Move quicker, child. Jazz. all the way, come on. There we go. Oh, not quite, hang on. Oi, camera's going over. Can't afford to let filming getting in the way of a tight seal. Oh look, it's stopped ever so shy, but I'm not too concerned. Oh, I've got to make sure I don't get anything fouling on there. But there we go, and again you can see, oh blimey, look. Let's get rid of that excess off the edge. This isn't looking very pretty. But that's alright. As we get the tight seal in there, ready for the next bit. But again, I've got to remember, well, not forget to put these on. If I do this, then I'm done. Right. I'll do the last couple because I've shown you my process. I've shown you how not to do it. So I'm going to finish these off and then I can get the rest of the pump in. There's my first complete one. I think that's gone in all right. All looks good. One thing I did just think of, and something I hadn't thought about before, was, right, so this is actually quite similar. I have done some solvent welds on household plumbing before, but a long time ago. It's the same. So what you could do, and something I should have done actually, is just buy a couple of pipe fittings. You could get them from Wicks, buy a couple from your koi dealers if they're a similar price, and just practice joining a couple together that aren't critical, because again, these are parts that come with my pump, and if I mess this up, I'd need to buy a new one. So that's a big outlay. If you just spend a couple of quid on some joints, try it, fail, check it. Doesn't matter if it goes in the bin or you make a complete mess of it, like I've done of this one. But you practice and you learn, don't you? So yeah, just that's what I'm going for. So get the other one done and let's get the pump in. So the first thing I need to do is make a mounting plate for this. It's not the best design really, because if you look, this is where the mounting holes are, but the, you know, whatever they're called, the screwy bits for the pipes stick out further below it. It's obviously been meant to mount on a rail or anything. I mean, it's kind of in the design. Look, it's exactly 10 mil, 1 centimetre. So I'll probably get something that's at least 2 centimetres thicker than that, so that we've got a bit of clearance under the turny bits if we need them. So the other thing as well, we'll see where the screws will need to go through here. You can't actually get to them from the top because this bit sticks out narrower than the top of the pump. So I'm gonna have to use some bolts, nuts and bolts or something, to attach those to it and give us a bit more of a secure, bigger mounting plate. So I'm going to do that now. I won't tell where the pump needs to go, and what I've decided to do is mount the pump right at the edge of this bit of wood, and then I'm just going to fix it with one screw because I'm quite tight for space. It's not heavy, it's not going to go anywhere, so I think that's fine. I've got some little nuts and bolts here that I had in a little dad tin, something like this, full of all my old screws and things. Actually, it was in one of these that I think I bought from pound shops. Anyway, just drilled a slightly bigger hole than the thread, so that when I put that in that way, it sits flush in the wood and doesn't stick out and make it rock. And the pump will sit on top of there, and we put a little nut on it. There we go. Just put those on, just to make, I put quite a wide base on it because I was only putting one screw in to hold it in, so I just needed to check didn't get in the way of the screw bits that hold the pipes on. So yeah, that's all right, looking okay. Where I'm going to be wiring this into a normal plug, I need to cut these off. Now, for my other pond equipment, it wasn't quite drawing as much wattage as this, so they all had 3 amp fuses, whereas this one draws 4.5 amps. So I'm going to make sure that I fit the plug with a 5 amp fuse. Now, if you remember in the instructions, it does say that this needs to be wired up to a circuit breaker, but if you've seen my other videos where I cover off how I wire in the whole electrics for my pond, I've actually got one of those RCD circuit breakers where it enters the mains at the house, so I won't be putting one directly on this. Just thought I'd share another little trick one thing I do to help me wire in plugs. So there's no need to cut all these the same length. So if you get your plug, hold the wire on it, you know, boom, it's a bit twisted. We know that the live needs to go to the fuse. earth needs to go up into there, and then the neutral goes into there. So you just lay it out and then snip the wires where they need to go. It just makes it so much easier trying to fit it all in the plug. And also once you've done that, just take all of these out, because it's just so much easier to wire these in when they're not in the plug, and then literally you can just slot them back in again. I'll show you what I mean. So if you firstly leave these in just to loosen off the screws, because sometimes they can be a bit tight, there we go, and then you can just literally check which way in that goes. Just a slight overhang on one side, not it makes much difference, but just get the right way around from the offset. Get that in there. Don't have to do them up too tight, you can tighten them up again when you put them in here. Again, the neutral one, that's going in there. Make sure that's in there correctly. I know lots of you watching this have probably wired a plug a million times before, but some people haven't. I used to do it and find it a bit awkward, and so yeah, skip this bit. It's probably going to go on for about another 30 seconds if you don't want to watch this. So yeah, they're all roughly in. Take this bit off, and you need to undo one screw on that, because you can just flip it round, and then you can just literally lay them in. Where does that one go? It goes up in there, doesn't it? Yeah, get that in, get the fuse in. And then what I normally do then, I won't need to show you all of this, but then look, all nicely fits in. Flip this bad boy back round, screw that in, and then just go around and make sure they're all nice and tight, and you can see it's all nice and neat, not fiddling around trying to poke it in these little holes. Yeah, anyway, back to fitting the heat pump. Right, I've just drilled me hole for the new return, and I've made a right old mess, and my wife would be going absolutely ballistic if she knew that I was outside here essentially hoovering up the garden when I haven't done the hoovering in the house. So I'll be interested to see her reaction to this when I put this video out. But well, we'll make sure it's all nice and clean for the fishes. There we go, hoovering's done. We're going to do the dusting in a minute. Right, so I'm ready to get it in position. So I've switched the pump off, disconnected my air, but obviously this is a pressure pump, so as soon as I disconnect it, it's going to leak. So actually what I've done is switched the isolation tap off on the tank, and I'm going to be going post filter. So actually what I've, this one here, back to the pond. So actually if I put this on the cleaning cycle, then theoretically that should stop any more pressure coming from the pump. So the only pressure that I'm going to have is going to be from the pond return. So let's see if that comes off and see if it goes everywhere. Hang on. Right, see what happens, shall we? Pond return. I only did these up finger tight, but I think where they've been righty tighty, lefty loosey, I'll have to put some new PTFE tape on this before I do it back up. So I think I'll probably get a bit of back pressure. I'll try and get this off quick. There we go. Oh, that's worked out all right. A little bit of spillage, but at least it's not like when I disconnected it last time to change the pipes, the whole thing just emptied. So that's amazing. I now need to, what's fortunate actually here is that when I left some slack so I can pull it through, reposition it a bit. So it's just another thing I always do is just leave it, like with cables, pipes, hoses, leave a little bit of slack until you're completely happy, and then trim it back once you know you're settled. So let's get the rest of the pump in. And there it is in. It's very tight, but it's fitted. So flow goes tank, pump, into the pressure filter, out the pressure filter, into the heater, and and then back out to the return to the pond. And I'm pretty chuffed with how it's all fitted in, to be fair. So I'm going to switch the pump back on. Just got to go and pick my daughter up now from school. So hopefully when I come back, there'll be no leaks and I can switch the pump on. Happy days. I've just put one of these, just a cheap thermometer in that's got a probe in, and I've been able to get it in the pond from my kitchen. Ignore the in temperature because that's inside the house, but look, the pond is 4 degrees. Honestly, I just completely nearly froze my arms putting the probe in. Wow. Okay, so we are about 2 hours later. It was 4 degrees and it is now 5.4. So I'm quite impressed with that. It's gone up that much. Let's see how much power we've used. This is the app that comes with the smart plug, and you can see it shows like a little bar graph of the usage. So it's been on for 2 hours, so it's used 2 kilowatt hours, 65p so far. Right, here we are, 35 minutes past midnight, way past my bedtime. But the pond is now at 6.2 degrees, so we've gone up by about 2.2 degrees since we started the heater about 3 hours ago. So let's go and have a look at how much energy we've used. Yeah, and no surprises, 3 kilowatt hours so far. So it's cost 98 pence. I'll put it on 38 pence a kilowatt hour at the moment, which is the current UK price cap. So yeah. Here we are the next morning and 12.2 degrees. So we've hit the temperature. What's it, 8:53? So started at 9:30, wasn't it? So yeah, it took about 12 hours. So I'm just going to go outside now and just see, there's the tank from the inside, and just check the thermostat. So the light's still on, so it's still heating. I can't quite see this side what I've got it set to, but I'm just going to turn that down now until the light goes off. There we go, it's only a slight adjustment. So back to the old energy monitoring app, and you can see the bar chart there on the right. Well, I switched it on about 9:30 because it's only obviously part of that hour's block, and then sort of back through to the next morning. Total run time up the top there, look, 11.3 hours. Yeah, used 11.3 kilowatt hours and £3.63 in total to heat the tank. So yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with it actually. Oh yeah, one thing I should say is that I did turn the air pump off overnight because there's no fish in there, it doesn't need the air, and it's just going to cool it down. And I also just I had some of this really thick bubble wrap in my shed, so I was able to just double that up and just stapled that to my cover. Let's put my hand in there, see what that feels like. It was so cold. It still feels cold. It doesn't feel warm by any stretch, but it's no way near as cold as it was last night. So oh look, and there you can see I put the wire from the thermometer there, and I've just run it down the old air pump and just zip tied it. Need to trim those, but yeah, that's the setup. Well, here we go, 20 to 5 in the afternoon, so 8 hours later. We've lost 0.1 of a degree on the temperature in the tank, and the heater hasn't come on all day. So that insulation I put in, and the bit of a makeshift bubble wrap cover has worked a treat.
3 weeks later.
I thought I'd give you an overview of how much electricity the heater's used over the last 3 weeks. So what I'm going to show up on screen now is like the outside temperatures, because obviously that's what we need to have a look at primarily. So I installed it on the 11th of March, the Saturday, and you can see it went down to 0 degrees, high of 7 and a low of 4 during the day. And then the temperature climbed a little bit over the Sunday and the Monday, sort of lows of 9 to 11, but then midweek it crept down to like 1 degree and then sort of back up to 7, 10 and 11 over the next few days. And then sort of the later days in March, it sort of stabilised around sort of 9 degrees, I suppose. And here's the bar graph showing like the daily energy usage. So you can see that big spike at the front. That's the second day when it was heating the tank from cold. So that's obviously by far and away the highest energy using day. And then obviously you can see over the rest of the month it just sort of trickled along and had a couple of spikes where the temperature really dropped. Towards the latter end of the month, I actually propped the top cover open a little bit to give a little bit of clearance to an auto feeder that I put in, and that did actually mean that it did use a little bit more energy in those latter days. Obviously, as a little bit of heat was escaping from the top. But I'll just give you now an overview of the overall cost. And here we are. So in the 3 weeks I've had it running, it's cost £19.39. So yeah, it's what's that, £7 a week. So yeah, it's costing less than £1 a day to keep that running at the moment. And again, this is keeping the tank at 12 degrees. And don't forget, it did cost me £3.60 to initially heat it up. So you could deduct that from the weekly average. So £1 a day. I'm pretty chuffed with that. So yeah, as I said, the out temperature is the one that's in the grow on tank. I'm just going to press the memory button because that will show us the minimum and maximum temperatures, and I haven't reset this for about 3 or 4 days now. So you can see the max temperature it got up to was 12.4 degrees and the minimum temperature was 11.7. So what's that? It's keeping about 0.7 degrees. Yeah, about 0.7 degrees variance in the temperatures between max and min. So the thermostat in there is obviously working quite well. So if you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. Hope you found the video useful and entertaining. I certainly had a lot of fun putting it together. And I think overall that heater's worked out really well for me. It meant I could get the fish when I wanted to. It's made a nice, even, consistent temperature when we've had some awful start to the spring over here in the UK. So there's a couple of other videos that I've done that I think are relevant if you haven't seen them already. I've got a video where I insulated the grow on tank and a video I put up last week where I unboxed the Cloverleaf heater. So yeah, have a look back on those. I'll probably put a link to them in the description. But once again, thanks for tuning in, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you on the next one.